Unilever has sustainability goals with a 2030 target date. Tell me what those are and how are you coming on delivering on them?
Yeah, David, the Unilever sustainability plan was written 8 years ago and set some very ambitious targets. For 2030, we said we want to be carbon neutral in our operations end to end. And we're very pleased that just last week we were able to announce that we're now sourcing 100% of our electricity from renewable sources in 5 continents. We don't think we should wait for policy change. There's things we can take in our own control, and those are the type of actions that we're taking. It's part of this week's General Assembly, which is very, very much focused on climate change, and we really welcome the initiatives on climate change that are being announced this week.
One aspect of sustainability has to do with packaging, and that's certainly important for Unilever, as for other companies. There's a lot of concern about plastics around the world right now. How are you addressing that?
Yeah, plastic is the material du jour. Actually, plastic's a wonderful material. It's got a very good carbon footprint, it's lightweight, it's highly efficient. The issue is too much of it ends up in the environment. So the marchword for us is keep plastic in the economy and out the environment. And the way we're tackling it is less plastic, reducing our absolute amount of plastic, better plastic, using more recycled material. And for example, here in the United States, by the end of this year, fully 50% of the plastic we use will come from recycled sources, and then no plastic. And we are looking at plastic alternative materials. The big danger, though, is that business moves into alternatives to plastic that have got a much worse carbon footprint. So we've got to beware hysteria on what is fundamentally a good material when used responsibly.
Unilever is a very big global company. But is it big enough to affect recycling as a practical matter, or does that really require the governments to step in?
So there are parts of the world where our footprint is big enough that we can trigger recycling systems, collection and recycling, simply by creating demand for the recycled material. But to impact worldwide, it's going to require collaboration between governments, non-governmental organizations, and importantly, the private sector. It's the private sector that will create the demand and therefore the economic incentive to trigger the collection and recycling systems.
Take us through the economics of sustainability. I mean, does it put pressure on your margins, for example? It's more expensive, so you have your costs going up?
It is 100% clear to us that the cost of inaction is far higher than the cost of action. And the business case for sustainability is simple. Our brands that are run on a sustainable basis grow faster. Our customers want to partner with sustainability-run companies. And maybe most importantly, it's a magnet for talent. What we usually see on a particular material is that there's an initial cost hump to get the system up and running. So a year ago, recycled plastic was about 10% more expensive than virgin material. That tipping point is being reached where recycled material in some places is less expensive than virgin material. So often there's an initial cost disadvantage that quickly becomes a significant advantage. Think about it. Responsible business, sustainability means using less resources. That should cost less.
So Unilever is not just concerned about the carbon footprint, but also the human footprint. That is to say, you're concerned with inclusion. For example, women in executive positions, people of color in executive positions. People talk about that and say companies do better when they have that, and yet they don't do better. Why is that? I mean, if it's really an economic issue, why doesn't every company have more inclusive policies?
So the business case for inclusion and diversity in your business, in your company, is completely well proven. We have a board of non-executive directors that's 6 men and 6 women. 49% of our managers in the company are women. And it begins with getting our own operations in order. Then in our extended value chain, in our dedicated suppliers and some of our distributors, we're ensuring that diversity and inclusion is alive and well there. But then there's a further role that we can play, which is with our brands. We can unstereotype the world. Most advertising still portrays horrible stereotypes of the roles that women and men are cast into. And so we can affect our own operations, our extended value chain, and society at large. And we know it's good for the world and it's good for business.
Unilever, as I say, is a global company. Trade is terribly important. Trade is under some stress right now globally. How is it affecting you?
Yeah, we're more reliant on overall global economic growth. So global GDP is very important for our business, and to the extent that trade restricts GDP growth, it's unhelpful. We are seeing a slowdown in many parts of the world. Fortunately, our business is not recession-proof, but it is recession-resistant. And so the slowdown that we're seeing is not particularly material for us. We take matters in our own hands, and even if there's a bit of a global slowdown, we'll choose to ignore it.
We hear a lot of difficulties with global brands, that there's a move away from global in some places toward regional, local, even artisanal brands. Do you see that at Unilever?
One of the secular trends of our times is fragmentation. Consumer groups are fragmenting, trade channels are fragmenting, media landscape is fragmenting, and we will need a portfolio that comprises our big global brands, which by the way are our healthiest part of our portfolio, but complemented by local artisanal brands that we will either grow ourselves or acquire. And actually we welcome that fragmentation. It means more consumer choice, and it plays to the broad reach and strength and depth that we have around the world.
We're all watching a drama play out in London with Prime Minister Johnson and what happens with Brexit. He says they're going to go out no matter what at the end of next month. How could that affect Unilever? Are you preparing for that eventuality?
So first, let me say we're a globally diverse company. We're used to geopolitical shocks. One of the healthiest parts of our business right now is North Africa and the Middle East. So we're used to far greater disruption than Brexit. Brexit for us boils down to one thing, which is friction. If there's border friction on the flow of goods or border friction on the flow of people or significant tariffs, it's an inconvenience, and we've made that very clear to the government. We're preparing for the worst and hoping for something a little bit better.
Does that mean stockpiling things in certain areas? So
we have. We've built, so things that are made in Britain and sold in Europe, we made a little bit of an inventory increase in Europe and vice versa, but it's not really material to our results.
Talk to us about the next opportunities for Unilever, for growth. What about emerging markets? What about acquisitions? Where are you looking to grow Unilever?
Yeah, we're continuing to evolve our portfolio through organic acquisitions, bolt-on acquisitions. But the most exciting thing is the growth in emerging markets. Places like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Myanmar, Ethiopia, huge populations, starting to move into the socioeconomic zone where they consume the types of products that we make and sell. And we're very excited about some of the next generation of emerging markets, as well, of course, as continuing to enjoy the positions that we have in big markets like the United States, India, and China. Those are some of the anchor markets for us.
So some of that emerging middle class, if I can call it that, in a lot of emerging markets is because of growth. Growth brings up a lot of people. Is that jeopardized at all by what you refer to as sort of a slowdown in global growth? Are you concerned about that, maybe turning some of that back around?
Yeah. We're talking here about global growth in the zone of, is it 3%, is it 2.5%? Frankly, the actions that we can take ourselves to ensure competitiveness, to ensure that our brands remain relevant by talking about things that matter to people, whether we do that well or poorly, has a far higher impact on the performance of our business than small changes in overall global GDP.
What's the imprint you want to leave on Unilever? You're only not there 9 months now. Big company with a long, storied tradition. When you leave, which is a long time from now, what do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, it seems premature to be talking about things like legacy.
But sometimes it's helpful to think at the outset, what do I want to leave when I leave?
My executive team and I have written down 3 things that we want to be famous for. We want our company to have a stable of the most purpose-led brands in the world. We want to prove unequivocally that responsible business results in better top and bottom line performance, and we want to be a beacon for diversity and inclusion and an organization where everyone is welcome to bring their whole self. That's what we want to be famous for.